Good morning or morning. I think it's hard to say. It's a good one. But thank you for tolerating it with a six pack, the Scotty Six Pack, the only podcast that's bringing you all the top stories in Wisconsin sports. And we have a top story, and it is the Milwaukee Brewers getting swept in the wild card round of the MLB playoffs by the Arizona Diamondbacks. If this is your first podcast, you can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Hit the subscribe button for free. Follow, rate the podcast 5 stars. We really appreciate it. It really helps us grow the show and helps us bring even better content to you every single day. We didn't talk about game one because we had a great interview yesterday with Noah Clark, the play-by-play voice of the Badgers for the Wisconsin women's hockey team yesterday, previewing their season that is just getting underway. If you have not yet listened to that interview, please do. Noah was very gracious with his time coming on, as he actually went on to record his own show that evening, Step the Pigskin with Sam Gemini, another friend of the podcast. That episode dropped yesterday morning as well. So that was very entertaining to listen to for me this morning. But we didn't talk about game one because we published that episode with Noah yesterday. And game one looked kind of like game two did last night, as Milwaukee lost 5-2 to get swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks at home in Milwaukee. Really, really tough way to end a fun Brewers season. Try to talk about, this season, it being memorable at the end. Try to make this not just an entirely negative show, but I think there's some serious negatives to talk through here. First, the game itself, kind of how things squared away, which is ultimately going to really parlay into the negatives in this game and in this series. The Brewers come out and have a great showing in the bottom of the first inning to take a 2-0 lead in this game, ultimately being the only 2 runs that they score. But after just 1 inning, in the top of the first, Freddie Peralta, the starting pitcher for the Brewers in this one, after Brandon Woodruff ends up not being on this wild card round roster with an injury, Freddie Peralta throws 20 pitches to lead off the top of the first. And the Brewers make the Diamondbacks ace, Zach Gallen, go even further in the bottom of the first inning, forcing Zach Gallen to throw 32 pitches and really just putting work on him, on Diamondbacks ace arm. End up scoring 2 runs. Really, really great way to go about it. And then after those 32 pitches and letting up 2 runs, Freddie Peralta comes out for the second inning, just throws 8 pitches, 3 up, 3 down, and then Zach Gallen had to go right back out. Was a really, really great way to start the game. Looked like the Brewers had something going. They came out to that early 3-0 lead yesterday as well, and then ultimately couldn't do anything after Corbin Burnes surrendered the lead in that one, which I think ultimately comes back to bite Milwaukee in this one. And maybe it's confirmation bias after all of Brewers fandom yesterday is talking about, oh, well, Corbin Burnes blew up. Corbin Burnes always blows up in the postseason. I wasn't really saying Corbin Burnes always blows up in the postseason, even though sometimes he does. But my take coming out of yesterday, or coming out of 2 days ago, rather, coming out of game one, wasn't, oh, another Corbin Burnes blow up. It was like, okay, Corbin Burnes blow up here hurts. Craig Counsell had a game two. I think it was actually immediately post game one, was like, no, we're going to be fine. All of our bullpen arms are going to be fine. I am not convinced. I'm not convinced. And I think that the Corbin Burnes poor start yesterday ultimately leads to a disaster game 2 this evening as I'm recording this. And it is just so unfortunate because the Brewers got some great shutout work from the bullpen during game 1. And then in game 2, Freddie Peralta does not surrender a hit, doesn't surrender a run until the top of the 5th inning after getting the first 2 outs of the inning. One hit on an 88-mile-an-hour changeup and surrenders a solo shot home run to give Arizona some light. And it's a 2-1 game all of a sudden at the top of the 5th. You would think, and although I thought about this, and I thought this was going to be more of a slam dunk take for, 30 seconds. And I'm really not so sure. But I wonder, because of the kind of the fickle way Freddie Peralta can sometimes take on games, do you think that if Craig Counsell did not have to go to his bullpen so early in game 1, does Freddie Peralta come out for the 6th inning in game 2? I don't know. But Freddie Peralta does come out for the 6th inning and allows a leadoff walk, a double to put 2 runners in scoring position, and then a 2-run single. And all of a sudden, the Diamondbacks have the lead after Freddie Peralta is not able to get a single out in the 6th inning. Abner Uribe comes in after pitching in a high leverage situation in game 1 and surrenders 2 more runs 4 and 5, ultimately being the 4th and 5th runs that Arizona scores in this game to win 5-2. The Diamondbacks score 4 runs in the top of the 6th inning. And it was tough. It was tough to watch as you had a bullpen arm come out in a high leverage situation in game 1. Really, really look fantastic. Then come out in a high leverage situation again in game 2 and does not look the part. And you're in this position to allow 2 more runs to give Arizona a 3-run lead because your starting pitcher in his last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 batters faced, allowed 3 runs. In his last 5 batters faced, allowed 3 runs and only got 1 out. That's who knows about the alternative world in which Corbin Burnes goes 6 innings, 7 innings in game 1, and you have a lot more bullpen arms. But we didn't see Yoel Payamps in this game. We saw him in game 1. Maybe we see him in game 2. There's, I think, room here to believe that an alternative scenario in which Corbin Burnes pitches better in game 1 allows Craig Counsell to feel more confident about going to the bullpen just a little bit earlier in game 2. And maybe this blow-up doesn't happen. Maybe Abner Uribe doesn't have to pitch in 2 high leverage situations on back-to-back days. And you get one of the good performances out of one of those 2 days. And instead, we get this. Milwaukee had a chance to get back into it. Particularly in the bottom of the 8th inning. Bottom of the 8th inning, Christian Yelich reaches on a bunt single. Sure, get on base. That's all the Brewers needed to do. Got on base. William Contreras hits a single, gets on base. All of a sudden, in a 3-run ball game, you're bringing up the tying runner at the plate. Carlos Santana strikes out, but then Mark Canha singles. You have bases loaded. The go-ahead run comes up to the plate. And this is where this series and the management decisions feel like they get out of hand. Feel like I just have no idea what we are doing here. And that is even giving the benefit of the doubt for Jesse Winker pinch hitting in the bottom of the 7th, which nobody got a lot of gripes about that. And we'll get to that. But in the bottom of the 8th, you have 1 out, bases loaded, tying run at the plate. You bring in a pinch hitter, is what you're thinking, as Sal Frelick is going to go up to pitch, or would otherwise be due up to bat against a lefty reliever. Sal Frelick is a lefty batter, lefty on lefty, very advantageous matchup for the pitcher. So here comes Joey Wiemer, right-handed batter, who you have in this game on this roster for base running, for a defensive replacement, for a pinch hitting scenario in which you need something like this. Joey Wiemer comes into the game. Joey Wiemer comes into the game to pinch run for Mark Canha. And the Brewers allow Sal Frelick, a left-handed batter, to go up and face the left-handed pitcher in a scenario in which you need a hit. You need a hit. Kurt Hogue of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel tweeted during the game, against left-handed pitching this year, Sal Frelick is slashing 184, 279, 290. Joey Wiemer 267, 298, 517. 267 batting average versus a 184 batting average for Sal Frelick against left-handed pitching. I don't know what the heck Craig Counsell is doing with Joey Wiemer on this playoff roster, if not for that exact moment. Or what are we doing here? That was a tough look. That was a tough management position. Or Andrew Monasterio, who came in to bat as a pinch hitter in the bottom of the 9th inning. There's another righty batter that you could have brought out there. What are we doing? Ultimately, that ends in disaster. Sal Frelick grounds into a fielder's choice. They throw out Christian Yelich in a force out at home. And then Willie Adames grounds into a fielder's choice as well immediately afterwards. And the Brewers really didn't have a chance in the bottom of the 9th too much. Tyrone Taylor weirdly didn't score off of a pretty hard hit double by Christian Yelich. Really not sure, with 2 outs, not sure why Tyrone Taylor did not just take off and try to score there. Very odd, but Brewers are left with a really sour taste in their mouths after this. And the Sal Frelick going up to take that at bat is just bonkers to me. No idea what Jesse Winker is doing on this playoff roster. Shouldn't have been anywhere near it. He dang near threw out his back in his 1 pinch hit appearance in game 1 and struck out, and then he grounded out. I think he didn't reach base in his game 2 at bat either. Was not a good option for those at bats. he hadn't got a major league at bat since whatever it was, July. And you're doing that over Rowdy Tellez, who, I know hasn't been great, but over Rowdy Tellez, no Garrett Mitchell. And yeah, Garrett Mitchell hasn't gotten those at bats either. But you feel like with the way this Brewers team is, you would almost at least rather have Garrett Mitchell. If we're going to have, this is where the Sal Frelick thing and the Jesse Winker thing get compounded. Because if you're going to let Sal Frelick take that at bat, which is just absolutely absurd to me, and you're going to let Sal Frelick take that at bat, I guess ostensibly because you want to put Joey Wiemer on the base paths already. So you don't want to put Joey Wiemer at the plate because you want him on the base paths for Mark Hanna. Wouldn't it be great if instead of Jesse Winker, we had somebody sitting on the bench who you want to trust her on the base paths already, like Garrett Mitchell? And you could have Garrett Mitchell come into the game, pinch run for Mark Hanna, and then you could have Joey Wiemer take that at bat instead of Sal Frelick, who can't hit left-handed pitching. Just in absurd fumbling of the bag. And I say, hey, you have Joey Wiemer take that at bat and Garrett Mitchell go on the base paths because Garrett Mitchell is a left-handed hitter. So that's unfortunate. We're going to talk about the season, big picture a little bit. Positives, what might happen after this, and the aftermath of this. But first, I want to tell you about TickPick. TickPick is the best place to get tickets on your next ticket purchase, whatever that might be. Obviously not going to be for a Brewers game anytime soon, but somebody told me it's Dame time. Somebody mentioned it's Dame time. Freak time is what the kids on the internet are saying. And so if you need to buy tickets on your next ticket purchase, you should download the TickPick app or go to the TickPick website. That's TickPick. Use my link in the podcast description, and you're going to save $10 off on your first order. It comes with TickPick's best price guarantee. And so if you find the same tickets on another ticket selling app at a better price, TickPick is going to refund you twice the difference in credit. That difference between the ticket you find on the other site and on TickPick's twice over in credit. Really, really great deal. That's their best price guarantee. Use TickPick. Use my code in the podcast description. Save $10 on your first order. And TickPick will never charge you delivery or service fees. So never pay service or delivery fees on tickets ever again. Use my link in the podcast description. Save $10 on your first order. Download the TickPick app. That's TickPick. And get the best deal on tickets for Freak Time in Milwaukee. You might also find a great deal for tickets to the upcoming Badger football game this Saturday at Camp Randall against Rutgers for homecoming. I will be at that game. If you are bumbling around Regent Street or Camp Randall, hit me up on the Twitter, the website formerly known as Twitter. Would love to meet and talk to any and all of you. So, big picture from this season, and I think big picture from this playoff disappointment is that the Brewers since 2018, since the Brewers were one game away from reaching the World Series, have not won a playoff series since. They have only won one game in the postseason since then. 1-8 in the postseason. Maybe the problem is that that's the only postseason playoff game I've been to ever. Maybe I need to go to more. I had tickets for tomorrow's game. That isn't going to happen. And games 3 and 4 of the NLDS. I was ready to help. Apparently, I should have gone to games 1 and 2 of this series, but Brewers 1-8 in playoff games since Game 7 of the NLCS in 2018. Obviously, and there you have some other heartbreakers, like the series against Atlanta. You have the wild card game against Washington. The Brewers are averaging 1.8 runs per game in that time. That from Adam McCalvey, the Brewers beat writer for MLB.com. There is a lot here. I don't know if this means the Brewers' approach needs to change, because there is absolutely something to be said for the oddly small sample size nature of the MLB postseason. Major League Baseball is the ultimate large sample size regular season. Play 162 games. And then you decide a playoff series in a best of 3. The NHL and NBA play half as many regular season games, and all of their playoff series are best of 7. You don't get to best of 7 series in baseball until the semifinals. Any person with a baseline level of knowledge on statistics knows that's a little absurd. And so I have gripes with the way certain aspects of the series were managed. However, there is something to be said for playoff randomness in the MLB over the past 4 years of consecutive first round playoff upsets, plus last year's failure to make the postseason. It is disappointing, particularly because this season was so much fun. I never believed, and I've maybe said this on this podcast, I've never believed that this Brewers team was capable of winning the World Series. I had, over the last month or so, maybe talked myself into them being a contender to get to the NLCS. And then, again, playoff randomness, you never know, because the Brewers offense had fixed a lot of its issues, had really been heating up. And you obviously had great pitching. This bullpen really, really came into its own this season. And the young players on this team really, really came into their own. I mean, Abner Uribe, although he did not have a stellar performance today, has just looked awesome. You have other guys. You bring Wade Miley back to this team as a 4th starter. And Wade Miley was at times your best starting pitcher this year. Obviously, I'm not talking about young guys there, but like, what a fun guy to bring back, talking about the 2018 season and all the disappointments that Brewers fans have had since then. You had the ups and downs of a young roster. Garrett Mitchell, who looked awesome to begin the year and then gets injured and is out dang near the rest of it. Joey Weimer, who is so fun with the mullet, and he gets off to that incredible on-base streak to start the season, has a slump, goes back down to AAA, comes back up for the playoff roster. You finally get Sal Frelick. Everyone really, really, really wanted to see him. And then he has one of the all-time great major league debut performances in his debut series in Milwaukee. Bryce Terang starts the season as the Brewers' second baseman. Goes down for a hot second to get some minor league at-bats at AAA, but such fun characters on this team. And a great way to have a fun year with so many of the young guys you just want to cheer for. You want to grow up with them as fans a little bit. In a year where Willy Adames did not perform spectacularly. In a year where, Christian Yelich had his ups and downs again. He's never going to be MVP Christian Yelich again, but he looked very solid. In a year where Brandon Woodruff struggled stay healthy. A year where Devin Williams was locked down as the closer. After last year, the team struggled in figuring out what that position was after trading Josh Hader at the deadline. It was a fun year. Really, really fun Brewers team. And it just, it's so disappointing to see this team go out like this. I had a lot of fun. I went to a good handful of Timber Rattlers games. I went to a good handful of Nashville Sounds games. I was all over the Milwaukee Brewers this year. And so for it to end like this, I think hurts just a little bit more for me personally, because I had been enjoying and invested in this Brewers season, probably more than I had been invested in any Brewers season in quite some time, if probably not, like probably the most I had been invested in any Brewers season ever. I think the thing that hurts the most is not knowing what comes next. I don't know if Craig Counsell is going to be back. My assumption is that he will not be. And although I have my complaints about how this playoff roster was comprised, individual management decisions made within the games that I thought were baffling. We all like to complain about Craig Counsell from time to time, but there is no denying it. He is the manager for the greatest era in Milwaukee Brewers franchise history. They went a generation without reaching the playoffs. He just won the National League Central 2 out of 3 years. Has missed the playoffs once since 2017. That is the greatest individual stretch of seasons, small stretch of seasons in franchise history, and there is absolutely no denying it. The MLB had to change the way managers were allowed to use relief pitchers because of Craig Counsell. The game of baseball was changed because he was too good of a manager. If we think about sports legends, the guy that comes to mind for me as the son of a Kansas alum, Wilt Chamberlain. We had to change the rules of basketball because he was too dominant. The MLB had to change the rules of managing baseball games because Craig Counsell got too good at it. Say what you will. He is one of the best managers, if not the best manager in baseball right now. And if he is stepping away to take time with his family or whatever, maybe he takes time to go to New York, whatever. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he will, but appreciate him. He has done more for this franchise than almost any other person ever. Between his time in the front office, his time as the manager, his 6 years as a player. Craig Counsell's a legend and would be absolutely revered as one if he had only done the one thing that nobody has ever been able to do for this franchise, which is win at a World Series. But it looks like we will have to wait another day for that. So thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Scotty Six Pack Podcast, which you can listen to and watch on YouTube or listen to on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a nice comment, follow along on your podcast platform of choice, leave a nice review with some 5 stars, kind comments. All of it really helps us grow the show. Let me know on Twitter or X. You can follow me at Kedrick Stumbris, follow the podcast at Scotty Sixpack to get the latest updates in Wisconsin sports, and to let me know how you're feeling about the end of this Brewers season. Let me know if you are headed to the Badgers game this Saturday. Let me know if you saw anything you thought was interesting coming out of Wisconsin Badgers basketball media days. There were a few interesting tidbits there. We might get some time to cover it on this show here. Wisconsin volleyball team swept Iowa today. That was cool. Leave you on a positive note. Wisconsin volleyball team has not yet dropped a set in conference play. They are dominant, and they're number one in the country. So on Wisconsin, this is still my crew. We'll see it again in April.